Warning, incoming game over. Warning, incoming game over.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the final episode of Game Over Ottawa of 2024. I'm glad we managed to make it back onto our own channel to end the year on this long road trip. The Ottawa Senators win 3-1 on the road in Minnesota. I believe they said on the broadcast the first win by the Sens in Minnesota in 8 years. I'm just going to hit the button immediately.
Hit that button.
The Minnesota Wild just got Sens. The Minnesota Wild minus Kaprizov.
Thank God that they were not with Kaprizov because that made it a lot easier tonight. Even though it wasn't an easy win, that would have made it a lot tougher.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm pretty psyched about the show tonight. Finally, Charlie and Maude back with you again for I think only the third time this season.
Yeah, we're 3-0 now of doing the show together, which is funny. It's only 3 times, but I think they're all wins, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, because the first one would have been Florida to start the season, and
then it wasn't
Pittsburgh?
Detroit, it was Pittsburgh. Yeah, the Pittsburgh game, right before the road trip. We did the last game
Yeah.
before the road trip, and now the next game back on the channel since the Sens have been in the Canadian road trip swing. So we could have had opportunities to hit the Sens button during those games, considering they were wins, but we were not on our own channel hosting the
No.
streams. So we
We were
finally
visiting.
got to hit that button again.
Yeah. So on the subject of that road trip that the Sens are currently on, so the Sens are now through 6 of those 9 games on the road. The absolutely crazy road trip, broken up by the Christmas break, just because of the World Junior Championships going on in Ottawa right now. So a 9-game road trip. They are through 6 of those 9 games with a 4-2 record, which is amazing. But I think most importantly of all is they keep their playoff spot after that win. Pittsburgh moved in for just a moment, but Ottawa's back in that second wildcard spot, like they never left.
Yeah,
but at
I was
this
going to bring
point-
that up because the most important thing is having 2 games in hand over the Penguins still. So being able to stay ahead of them while keeping those games in hand is great too. Because when you're behind the team and you have games in hand, it's like, oh yeah, we'll catch up, but you never really know how those games in hand are going to go. So still being ahead of them at this point is really good. And it kind of seems like the teams that are chasing the Sens for the wild card have kind of been like beaten up on each other, like Pittsburgh and the Islanders trading wins on a back-to-back set. Flyers are up and down. Columbus was playing Boston. They took one game from Boston. Boston got the other. So it's like all these teams in the East are just kind of like middling and kind of staying where they are right now, which at the moment is good for the Sens, considering they're in that final spot.
Yeah, it's perfect for Ottawa. And you're completely right about the whole games in hand. We've experienced the Sens being so close to a playoff spot with games in hand, and as recently as I guess that'd be the 23 playoffs getting kind of close.
The DeBrincat year, right? It was
Yeah.
I think when we had the "We Want Playoffs" chant after that game against Columbus, I think it was we were back by a few points, but we had like 5 games in hand for whatever reason. So
Yeah.
that was the hope that it was like, oh well, we'll just win most of those games, right? And it doesn't always work out that way. But for now, nice to have those games in hand, but also glad that we were able to keep pace with the Penguins with the win here tonight.
Exactly. So let's talk about this game specifically. Bit of an up and down game. First period, like by the end of the first period, it felt more like one of the October and November games. The Sens looked good. They were still in it, but down. It just kind of felt like what a lot of the first couple months of the season had been like before that crazy run in December. The 1-0 goal, the only goal by the Minnesota Wild. Merrilainen definitely looked a little out of position. He was screened perfectly and just kind of bit too hard on one side to take a peek, leaving the net wide open. I can't blame him on that though. Regardless of how great he played the rest of the game, I can't even say that that's really on him. That one goal going in, he had a phenomenal game tonight.
Yeah, I'm actually just taking a look at the goal again one more time here because I didn't notice that it was switched to Frederick Gaudreau with the goal. Apparently he tipped it in. and I didn't notice that during the game. I don't know, maybe everyone else noticed that right away, but
I
at
didn't.
first I thought it was just a straight shot in from the Wild defenseman there, but it did actually take a change of direction according to. It's really hard to see it on the replay, but you see him wave his stick in front of the puck. So according to how they credited the goal, it was a deflection in front there too. And hey, if you if the only goal that goes in on you was a deflection on a shot from the point, that's a great game from your goalie. Yeah, like Marilainen did get help from the post, I think like 3 or 4 times, right? But
Yeah.
I liked what Jamie McLennan said on the broadcast, which was that on those plays where the Wild hit the post, it's not like they were hitting the post on wide open net chances or anything like that. They were all plays where Marilainen was in position to make the
Hmm.
save, and he sort of forced the shooter to have like barely any room to like pick the corner, and then so they hit the post, they hit the crossbar, but Marilainen's there, and it would have had to be like a perfect shot for it to actually go in, right? So just awesome stuff in terms of the goaltending, which is great to see considering how yesterday's game went.
Yeah, the chat's already going back and forth a little bit about Marilainen here, and we are definitely going to be getting into a more broad goaltender conversation, so I'm sure the chat's going to be very involved in that as well. Um, as far as the rest of the game goes, the second period, Sens tied up off of an absolutely terrible Hamnick shot from the point that you can
Hey,
tell me he's
hey,
missing on purpose to make a pass off the
he
boards
got
all
the
you want.
assist.
There's
It
no way.
worked. It
There's
worked,
it
so that means
worked.
it was good. If they scored, it was good.
Yeah.
That's my copium logic. I used to always joke, like when the Sens were really bad, joke with my friends that like they would make a terrible defensive play, but it wouldn't go in the net, and I'd be like, hey, it wasn't bad defense because they didn't score. So this is the opposite, where it wasn't bad from Travis Hamonic because it worked. He gets the assist, he gets credit, but yeah, it was
Yeah.
the usual Hamonic slapper that doesn't come anywhere close to being threatening, and then ends up a lucky bounce for really Greg. It was really nice to see him get on the board. I think he's been buzzing lately, so I
Hmm.
was happy about that one.
Yeah, big way to tie the game. And then, yeah, like you said, the Wild hit the post 3 times in the second period alone. So that was a little helpful. And then the third period, this is what blew my mind. So the Sens get back-to-back power plays in the third, in very quick succession, just seconds apart. And the Sens look great on both those power plays, and Norris finally beats Gustafsson on that second power play after Gustafsson was seemingly stopping everything. No rebound to be had anywhere. He had an unbelievable game as well. The Minnesota Wild have a 60% PK at home.
Oh my god, I didn't realize that.
Like, I want to make sure
What's
I
their
have that right, because I'm
overall?
pretty sure that's
What's
what
their
it said on the
overall ranking?
broadcast. But I think it
That's
said they have like a
crazy.
60% PK at home. Something
Hmm.
absolutely nuts.
I'm gonna pull up PK rankings right here. Just sort by the yeah, they have the worst or sorry, third worst in the whole league for like average penalty kills. So it's as you said, must be worse on home ice than on the road, which you'd think it would be the opposite. But yeah, they're actually ranked third worst in penalty kill. I would not expect that because they're known as a defensive team, and especially like we always say like, oh, Philip Gustafsson is just doing good because he's on a defensive team, but penalty kill apparently not. And I mean, considering the Sens didn't get power play until the third period, they were looking pretty good defensively overall until that point, and then the PK just sunk them, eh?
Yeah. Um, I'm still reeling from that number. It's so like Minnesota's having a really odd year. They won the last 2 games, but they went on a bit of a poor stretch. Even with those last 2 games being wins, heading into tonight, they only had won 4 of their last 10. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, another team like I mean, I think Sens fans in general, I think we've all been doing the same thing where we're focusing on the teams that are weirdly middling in the East, just because it's of interest to us as Sens fans, seeing what teams are struggling a bit in the East. But the West has had some odd teams like that as well. Um, but yeah, then Giroux with a phenomenal play to keep control of the puck there at the very, very end, and fires a puck in about 160 feet or so into the empty net. Um, I thought it was kind of interesting that the Wild were kind of shouting for Pinto to get a penalty for playing with a broken stick. I think they might
Yeah.
have been right.
You think?
Uh,
Okay, because I have the opposite take. As soon as I heard them, the announcers at least saying that Minnesota was complaining about that, I was like, okay, I have to rewind and look.
yeah,
Um, And I felt like I thought I saw where Pinto's stick broke kind of along the boards. He was engaged with Eriksson Ek, I think it was. I think his stick broke at that moment. I saw it bend a little bit, and then he goes back around, and later the puck comes to him, and right before the puck comes to him, you kind of see the shaft of his stick wobble, and he looks at it. I think that was the moment when he noticed it was broken.
For sure.
Then
Yeah.
he kicked the puck forward, and I guess he dropped his stick because it was broken. I didn't really notice, but I think that the puck after he kicked it might have hit his own broken stick and stayed into the zone. Do you think that was correct, or did it hit something else? Because
No, I think that could be it. Yeah.
because if that's the case, that actually like worked in Minnesota's favor because it kept the puck in the zone longer, which I think is
Yeah.
kind of ironic considering that they were complaining. But I don't know. I didn't think that he played the puck with a broken stick. Like, am I crazy or?
No, I think you're probably right. Okay, sorry, just real quick, Hams in the chat to be exact, 63.2% home PK for Minnesota.
That's brutal.
That's
That
nuts.
percentage is worse than anyone's overall penalty kill percentage in the whole league. Like the worst in the league is the Islanders at 63.3. So it's right there.
That's crazy. My God. And even with Gustafsson playing as well as he is this season, that's crazy. Yeah, no, I think you're probably right. I wasn't super sure. I didn't take a look at it again. I just kind of had this feeling of like, I don't know. It's just the timing was weird. It was a poor angle from the broadcast, so maybe if there was a replay shown from a different angle that I missed, then
Yeah.
it probably
It's
makes
a
it pretty
bit
clear.
it's a bit hard to tell along those near boards because it's just
Yeah.
the sight lines with the camera. You just have less of a view there. But I think Minnesota, not necessarily the team, but also the fans, I think were kind of becoming whiners in that third period because I couldn't believe how much they were booing and chanting "Refs,
Oh
you
yeah.
suck" for those penalty calls by Bogosian and Spurgeon, which to me are two of the most obvious calls like you could ever take in
Oh
terms
yeah.
of defensive like along the boards. Just especially the Spurgeon one was really funny to me because he reached in with one arm and then he reached in with the second arm and then he came back in again with the third arm, so he's just grabbing and grabbing like
Yeah.
crazy, and then somehow they boo that call. Like I try not to be biased, and I just think like if I was at a Sens game and the Sens defenseman took those penalties, I wouldn't be booing. I'd be like, that's bad defense, these are bad penalties, and I would just be annoyed, right? So like
Yeah.
I don't know. And then yeah, the bench whining at the end of the game too, trying to say that Pinto played with a broken stick, I think was just grasping at straws. So I like that I have a little bit of a schadenfreude for how that third period ended, that we ended up getting the win because they were getting a little tilted over there in Minnesota.
For sure. And I think there's at least a couple of plays that, I think there are a couple of tripping non-calls that the
Mhm.
Wild probably should have taken earlier in the
Yeah.
game. And then, but at the same time, just if we're talking about, you know, certain players being pissed off, the way Kachuk just killed Marco Rossi at the end of the game there
Oh
and took a
yeah.
penalty. That's a little silly, Brady. Come on, dude. That's
Yeah.
being a little bit silly. And I know, and I'm a big Marco Rossi fan. I love the 67s. I will say I'm biased and I'm a huge fan of both of these players. But like, buddy, I know you're up by 2 with under a minute to go. Like, this team has found ways to lose games that somehow even more heartbreaking than that hypothetical situation where you give up 2. But like, so like, let's not tempt fate here.
Yeah, yeah, I get why that would make you nervous. It was a sicko moment from Brady for sure, sort of just being like, yeah, we have a 2-goal lead. I'm just gonna take a free shot at someone and just see what I can get away with. It was some rascal behavior from Brady there, but yeah,
Yeah.
like I think, let me see the time of the penalty just so I don't have to fact check myself. But I think there
My
was
brain
like
says 1913.
yeah, 1933. So
Oh, okay.
27 seconds left at that point. It was probably okay. Like
Yeah.
you don't want to be
Okay.
giving up penalties in at the final minute of the game when you're trying to defend a lead. But at least with a 2-goal lead, it would have taken a miracle for them
Oh, for
to
sure.
do
For
something
sure.
at that point. But yeah, it was pretty funny. And I think it was it Pinto and Eriksson Ek were going at it a lot tonight too. I think there was that play where Eriksson Ek put the puck in the net after the whistle, after
Yeah.
Merlinen had covered it, and he was jamming away there too. So it got pretty chippy at the end of the game, which is surprising because it's not like these are two teams that have any sort of rivalry.
Yeah. I saw they mentioned that I think it was 3 players on tonight's game that were on the gold medal winning team for the U.S. at the World Juniors. Sanderson, Clevin, and was it Boldy, or is Boldy Canadian? Boldy's American.
I think he's American. Yeah. That's probably
I can't remember
that's
who it was.
probably the
Anyway,
right guy. Yeah, I don't
yeah,
know. I
and
wouldn't.
weirdly
From
enough,
Minnesota side, I
none of those were the guys involved in any of the back and forth. So,
Yeah.
yeah, really, really fun game overall. Let's head into our second period conversation. We're going to talk about the absolute shuffling around that was done with the Sens lineup. But before we do that, let me just tell you all about Hyperdrive Hockey. So shift into Hyperdrive and get ready to have some fun with your new source for all the biggest stories in hockey, bring a unique style of broadcasting and commentary with a Quebecois flavor. Hyperdrive Hockey combines top-tier hockey analysis, big stories, pop culture, and a damn fun atmosphere that will drive debate, make you think, and more. Join Max, Daphne, and Kev every Tuesday and Wednesday for your fill on the hockey world. Watch on YouTube on the Game Over Network channel or subscribe to the podcast on Apple, Spotify, or Amazon. Head to our website, thegameovernetwork.com, for more. Heading on in to the second period, we got to talk about these lines and lineup decisions in general. So, for those who don't know, that worked. So I'm not going to like lean into it and talk as much shit as I thought I was going to originally. But just to give everyone a little heads up here on what the lineup is. So the forwards were top line Brady Tkachuk, Shane Pinto, Ridley Gregg. Second line Adam Gaudette, Tim Stützle, Drake Batherson. Third line Nick Cousins, Josh Norris, Claude Giroux. Fourth line Cole Reinhardt, Zach Ostapchuk, and Noah Gregor. Other than that, the other big thing is they took out JBD, put in Nicholas Matenpalo. Other than that, defense stayed the same. So my thing, though, I just want to say is I think it's kind of, this is going to sound stupid because they won. They did win the game for sure, but you don't need to start freaking out after they lose to the Oilers and Jets.
Yeah, you think it was a little bit too much?
Yeah, like
overreaction.
I think the Jets game especially felt like a scheduled loss. It's annoying that they gave up 4 unanswered goals after going up 2-0 and giving us all hope. Like I understand, like there's a frustration to it there, but you win 6 straight, then you lose to McDavid. Fine. Then you lose to the top team in the league with your 4th string goalie in net. Like, I don't think that's enough reason to freak out and move everything around. Obviously, it worked out fine, but it just kind of gives me, like, if I'm being really nitpicky about things here, it just makes me wonder about, like, just, I don't know, the confidence that the coaching staff has in the general lineup that was showing so much promise with those 6 straight wins. Like, I don't want anyone to feel like they need to panic after losing to 2 of the top contenders in the Western Conference to boot. Like, these aren't teams you're gonna have to worry about dealing with, you know, in meaningful games for a while unless you make it to the Cup final. Like, I'm not too worried about that. It just feels like an odd choice to start freaking out after 2 losses against 2 really, really strong teams.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. I think the main reason for shuffling the forward lines at least was, I think, just it's 1 5v5 goal in the last 2 games. Only 3 goals scored total, with, I think, because it was both of the games in the Winnipeg, both the goals in the Winnipeg game were on the power play, if I remember correctly, right? So not as much 5-on-5 offense lately. So I see where they're coming from there, but I also get what you're saying in that before those 2 games, it was going so well where you were just like, okay, we don't need to change anything at all. So I was a bit surprised when I saw the lines before the game. I didn't think that they were going to make like that many changes. Like at most, I thought they were just going to be shifting around 1 or 2 guys. Like, you know, sometimes Gaudette's in the top 6, sometimes he's not. He gets dropped up and down. So I expected it to be like kind of just like one move like that. But they switched it up entirely, where pretty much every line was totally different tonight. And like, I guess it worked. They won the game, but I'd say it's probably mixed results overall. But do you want to get right into like each line specifically?
Yeah, we could definitely do that. So, we've seen now Kachuk on. I guess this is three because as usual, the year it started out on that standard like Tim Stutzla, Claude Giroux, Brady Kachuk line. When things were working out, they moved him with Norris and Batherson. So now he's playing with Pinto and Gregg. So completely new line mates for him, compared to the majority of the season. Um, I mean, it was a good line. It worked tonight. As far as just like general like play, you know what, let me what I should be doing right now
Here.
specifically, we're talking 5-on-5.
Mhm.
I should be pulling up natural stat trick.
You know, I have it open right now.
Okay, well there you
Want
go.
me to get into some of that?
Please,
Um,
yeah, absolutely.
So, like, sorting by the Corsi 4 percentage, Kachuk, Pinto, Gregg was easily the best line for. Or wait, the sorting was wrong. Actually, they were actually the worst. Um,
Really?
I had it in reverse, but they're all really close is the thing. So, Kachuk, Pinto, Gregg was 55% for that.
Okay,
Stutzla
if
got
that's
at
the worst
Batherson.
5-on-5 line, then
Yeah,
that's nuts. That's really, really impressive.
exactly. So, and then Stutz's line, it was 56, so it's close. The fourth line, it was 47, or 57, sorry, so it's close again. And Norris, Giroux, and Cousins had the best percentage with 60.87. But a couple other stats that I wanted to point out about Kachuk, Pinto, and Gregg tonight, because the Corsi percentage, I think, doesn't quite give them like the best look in terms of there's some deeper stats that I think are more interesting. Is if I'm reading SF and SA properly, anyway, I believe that would just be straight shots for and shots against. They're much better in that than the Corsi 4. So 10 shots for and only 5 shots against for that line, which compared to the shot attempts for, that means that 8 of the 13 shot attempts against were either blocked, missed, or maybe there was a couple of those post hits on their
Hmm.
shifts. I'm not sure. But like that's a much better ratio and compared to just the pure shot attempts, the actual shots that got through to the goalie, they were better for that. And part of that, I think there was that one scramble play in the second period where they got like 3 or 4 shots on one play with Kachuk and Gregg just banging away there. But that's what you like to see, causing chaos in front of the net from that line, because specifically the combination of these 3 players are 3 guys who all go hard like along the boards and to win the puck, to cause turnovers, and they also go hard to the crease as well. So like they're gonna have those chances where it's a flurry of shots like all in one all in one sequence. And then the expected goals for was pretty good as well. Best out of all the lines was 0.98, and expected goals against was only 0.41, so I like that too. And the high danger scoring chances was the other one I really wanted to point out, is they produced 6 and they only allowed 1 against. So I'm really happy with how that line played tonight. We have to give full credit to Travis Green for putting that one together, and full credit to the players for executing tonight.
That's really impressive. Um, you know what? I'm just gonna cherry pick. I'm just gonna jump straight to Reinhardt, Ostapchuk, and Gregor.
Hmm.
I don't know how much time on ice those three had together at 5-on-5, but I would love to know what
Okay.
those numbers are looking like for those guys.
They had 7 minutes together. What do you, first of all, before I tell them to you, did you have like a generally positive reaction to them tonight, to their minutes?
Yeah, I wasn't like, I don't think I was blown away for a lot of it, but like at no point was I going, oh God, here's the fourth line again.
Yeah, and that's good because for the past like 6 years, the Senators' fourth line has just always been like basically unplayable and just getting caved in all the time. So
Yeah.
I think your fourth line getting a 57% Corsi percentage is pretty good. You can almost never complain about that from a fourth line. And yeah, the actual shots for and shots against was basically the same, 55% for that ratio. And let's see scoring chances. They generated 3 regular scoring chances, not high danger, and 4 against. Generated 1 high danger and 2 high danger against. So not like amazing defensive impacts, but in terms of helping or hurting your team, I would say like it was basically neutral today, but towards the positive end of they didn't hurt the team, and
Hmm.
I think they did a pretty good job. Like just from the eye test, I think they did a pretty good job of sending the play into Minnesota's offensive end, just like getting the puck out of their own zone and getting it deep. behind the Minnesota defense. So yeah, like I was pretty happy with the fourth line overall too.
Yeah, and then as far as the other two lines go, I mean, like, from the sounds of it, like 5-on-5, despite the weirdness of throwing everything in the blender, like it worked.
Hmm.
Do you just go into the next game leaving things as is? Are you going back to how they were previously before the break?
Hmm. I mean, it's tough because when you say before the break, it's funny because they have another break. It's like 4 days before the next
Yeah.
game. So it's not like the momentum from this game of how they played is necessarily going to carry over for sure. They're not really in a rhythm right now. It's like play 2 games, take 4 days off, play another 2 games, take another 4 days off. So like I think because they won, they'll probably go back with the same lines. But I could easily see like if it doesn't produce immediate results, maybe you shuffle things around a little bit during the next game potentially. But yeah, I think just because they won the game and pretty much all the lines were positive in terms of shot differential.
Mm-hmm.
I think they probably stick with that. I feel like the fourth line and the first line, which we've talked about already, were probably the two lines that I had the most positive things to say about and the most positive impressions from what I saw. But like the Stutzla, Gaudette, Batherson, and then Norris, Giroux, Nick Cousins, I feel like those lines weren't really doing it for me. Norris, Giroux, Cousins does have good stats here in terms of like all the ones that I've been reading, like the high danger chances for and against. They had a 3-to-1 ratio, so you like to see that too, and the Corsi as well was good. But I feel like I don't know. I don't know if Giroux and Norris were really clicking offensively. There were some plays where Giroux would try to make a pass and Norris wasn't ready for it and stuff like that. I felt
Mm-hmm.
like they weren't quite in sync. Nick Cousins on his own has just been playing very good for the entire month of December, so he was good, but I feel like I didn't notice much chemistry on that line, like in terms of generating chances, even though they did end up with good advanced stats. I wouldn't be opposed, all this to say, I wouldn't be opposed to sort of mixing up those two lines. Like maybe I like Giroux and Stützle together in general. Maybe Gaudette on the left wing there. Maybe maybe Norris, Batherson, and Cousins. Maybe Cousins on the left side there. I don't know. Like I feel like those two lines, if anything were to be shuffled, I would probably do something with those two. But what do you think? Do you think that those two lines had much of an impact tonight? Because I felt like I wasn't seeing too much from them.
No, I mean, purely on paper, it's not my favorite way to set up this lineup. I don't love it, even with tonight's win. I'd much rather see them move things back to a more standard look, I guess. Just yeah, that Nick Cousins Norris Giroux line doesn't feel like any of them mesh well together.
Hmm.
Um,
Like the
you know,
results were fine in terms of
yeah,
the numbers, but I feel like just while I was watching, it felt like they didn't really click, which is weird. It's weird to say that the result was good and the numbers look good, but when I was watching it, it didn't seem like a line that you think should really stay together for a long period of time or anything like that.
yeah. I feel like I don't know, not to say you need to break up one of the better lines that played tonight, but I think Kachuk with I don't know actually, because like you were saying, Giroux and Norris just didn't really, and maybe they just need another game together to make things click.
It
I
could be
I would
that.
love to know how much ice time they've had together, 5-on-5, through their career. It's probably not a ton.
Barely any because as soon as Giroux signed here, that's when Norris got injured for
Yeah,
like the whole season the first time. So any ice time that they have had together would have been this season, and I don't really think they've lined up at 5v5 together
no,
too often this year.
yeah. So maybe just they need a bit more time to click, but
Hmm.
I don't know. I would definitely shift things around. And then on defense, I don't hate the move of like you take out a JBD and try Matt and Paolo. Like in like on its own, that's fine. What I don't like is you're making roster moves on the defense and you're still sticking Hamnick with Sanderson.
Yeah.
Like just
It's
if you're like the Clevin JBD pairing isn't working, fine. Just take out Hamnick try Matt and Paolo with Clevin and just see what happens when you put JBD with Sanderson. Who knows? It could be great.
For some reason, they're really scared to try that JPD with Sanderson. I don't know. I don't know why we haven't at least seen it once so far, but probably the same reason that Travis Hamonic has played every single game this season.
Oh, yeah.
Like overall for Hamonic in this game, I feel like I don't have too much negative to say about him. There wasn't any moments that stuck out in my mind where it was like, oh my god, he looks so bad. He's the reason that this scoring chance happened against. If we throw it back to the Winnipeg game, there is a little bit of that, which I'm sure you talked about on the last show.
Oh yeah.
Specifically sticking out in my mind is the power play goal, which was the game-winning goal in the third period, where
he's pointing.
Yeah, where he's pointing and he is standing perfectly in the center of a triangle of 3 Jets players. Where
removes his stick from the lane, 2 point.
Yeah, he's not covering the bumper guy. He's not pressing the passer who's down towards the goal line, and he's not covering the passing lane to the backdoor guy either. So that has nothing to do with tonight, but that is the sort of thing where.
And then he looks at Giroux after the goal goes in, like, "What are you doing?"
Yeah, that's the sort of thing where you see that, and then you wonder why this player is in the lineup every single game and still in the lineup the very next night on a back-to-back too, especially because he is an older guy at this point in his career with a lot of mileage on him from a lot of physical play, a lot of block shots, and he's already not a fast skater. You would think if they were to ever take Travis Hamonic out of the lineup, that maybe it would be on the second half of a back-to-back and use that sort of like, oh, we don't think he's been playing bad, but he needs some rest as a veteran, like some load management sort of an excuse. But they don't even do that. They just they keep rolling with him, and luckily tonight it wasn't too much of an issue. But yeah, I am definitely tired of Jake Sanderson having to play with Travis Hamonic. But hey, at least it didn't stop Matt and Paolo from getting a look, and he did pretty good, right?
Yeah. And like I said before, I don't mind the idea of splitting up Clevin and JBD now. They've had a couple of rougher games, I think, the last little while here. And yeah, I think that bottom pair was fine tonight. It just all kind of goes back to you're making all these changes, and the only thing that stays the same is like the thing that's at the top of my list that needs to change in the lineup.
Yeah.
So this is bugging me.
Yeah, it's like everything changed except for the one thing that you wanted to change the most, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Which is funny. In terms of Matt and Paolo, I was getting ready to roast him about halfway through the game because that penalty that he took was one of the not only one of the dumber penalties you'll see, because there's never a scenario where sticking someone in the groin is like defensible. Like it's always just a stupid and dirty play.
Yeah.
But specifically because I hope that sound didn't come up on the. I got jump scared by some weird house noise. Anyway, specifically the timing of that penalty was really bad because the Sens were dominating the first 10 minutes or so of the second period at that point.
Yeah.
And if Minnesota had scored on that power play, it would have been a huge momentum shift. I think that would have given them. I think that would have put them back up 2-1 at that point if they scored there. And I think they hit the post twice on that power play. So Matt and Paolo was a little lucky that the Sens didn't get burned on his penalty there, because the timing of that was just brutal. When everything's going your way in terms of the flow of the game, Minnesota comes back your way and you end up just sticking one of them in the crotch for no reason and giving them a power play for nothing. It's not like they even really did anything to draw that penalty. But so even though we had that, him and Clevin actually finished with amazing stats in terms of the shot differential. Clevin being 94.74% and Matt and Paolo being 86.36% for Corsi. Clevin was only on the ice for one shot attempt against, and Matt and Paolo was only on the ice for 3 shot attempts against, which is insane. I actually can't believe that.
What? Okay, what's their 5-on-5 ice time together? Like 2.5 minutes?
It was 10 minutes, 10 and a half.
Holy,
roughly.
Okay. All right.
So that's
okay.
That's pretty crazy. Like I feel like you can't argue with those numbers because it's
No.
so colossally lopsided. And like I did notice them being in the offensive zone a lot. I don't have like the stats on. Oh, yeah, actually, Natural Stat Trick does have these stats in terms of which zone they shifts in. I felt like I
Yeah.
saw them in the offensive zone a lot, which makes sense with the shot attempt stats. But actually, they only started 2 shifts in the offensive zone off of faceoffs. And everything else was like on the fly changing, and one
Okay.
defensive zone start, one neutral zone start. I almost said shart. One neutral zone shart, which is what the Sens used to do before this recent hot streak was sharting themselves in the neutral zone. But yeah, like pretty good. You wouldn't expect your third pairing of 2 defensive D to like actually be in the offensive zone a lot, and not in their defensive zone much at all, because we're used to our bottom pairing defense just getting caved in.
Yes.
But they did
Yeah,
the
yeah.
opposite tonight.
Yeah. So maybe this is what they need to see to give JBD a shot. It's not gonna happen.
I
It's
think the
not gonna
coach
happen.
will look at it and keep JBD in the press box and just keep
Oh
hammering it
God.
going.
All right. I think that's all I have to say about lineup shuffling. Anything else you want to add before we head on over to our goalie talk?
Probably the only other thing I would say is that I'm still really mad that Michael Amadio is injured, especially because the Department of Player Safety never even took a look at that hit. I think it was from Carson Soucy, because that was just like an obvious shoulder to the head on that behind the net camera replay, and I'm mad that the Pinto Amadio Greg, or was it Greg? No, it was Cousins. It was Cousins. I'm mad that that line was so good for all of December, and we don't get to see them play anymore, and we had to do these crazy line shufflings because of Amadio not being in the lineup anymore. I think that if he wasn't hurt, they might not have shuffled the lines so badly, because they would have wanted to, keep that third line together. So that really sucks. I hope he can come back soon.
Absolutely. If there's nothing else that we can say, it's that as well as the team has played, we have not seen them with 0 injuries basically all season. And I mean, obviously no team is ever going to have 0 injuries, but there's still room for players to return and filling out this lineup a little bit nicely, a little bit nicer than, things look now. Although I'm biased in saying that because I think the lineup shakeup looks ridiculous, and maybe it'll, I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah, you wanted to go back to like close to what it was before.
Yeah, ideally that'd be nice. But we'll see.
I guess I somewhat agree with what I was saying about Amadio. Like when he comes back in, I'd like to see them try that third line again, because it was so successful. I believe David Perron is skating now too, so if he comes back, it'll be interesting to see where he gets plugged in. I don't know who you would take out at the moment.
That's a good question. Like I imagine you probably, I guess you have to set down Reinhardt, but like
Yeah, I guess
he's
I
looking
guess
good
Reinhardt
though.
or
Is the
Datsuk.
problem?
One of the
Yeah.
two-way guys, one of the guys who can
Yeah,
who doesn't have to go through waivers.
definitely. All right, with that, let's head on over to our third period. But before we do that, I just want to remind everyone that there are several ways that you can support the stream, the network, the show, however broad you want to talk about it. So obviously the cheapest way to do it is to like the stream, subscribe to all the channels, and share the show with your friends if you're enjoying it. Or if you're not enjoying it and you want to send it out to someone who can dunk on the show, that's great too. All interaction helps the algorithm, and we love it. But if you do have a few bucks laying around, there are a few ways to support us. I'll be talking about the merch later on in the show, but we do have a Patreon where you can help support by contributing a certain amount every single month. There are rewards on there currently, and we are planning on thinking of some new rewards, figuring out different ways to show our gratitude for all of your support. But again, all the easiest ways to help us out are free. Like, subscribe, share with your friends, join the Discord as well. We have a Discord server, a lot of fun, lots of talk going on there about hockey and basically everything else. I think we have like a chat for pretty much everything that you could ever want to talk about, whether it's sports or music, movies, pop culture, whatever. A lot of trash talking going on about our fantasy league as well, which is a lot of fun as well. Actually, speaking of which, that's one of the things that on Patreon, the first thing we ever did on Patreon was the first few patrons were able to join our Game Over fantasy league. And actually, you know what, I've been meaning to do this for a while. I did this a little while ago and I completely forgot to do it again. I said I was going to give like weekly updates whenever I'm on the show, so let's just do that really quick. I give the top 3 players in the league and whoever is in last place. Currently last place is Conrad of Game Over Calgary. Sorry, Conrad.
I feel like I'm like, oh, the reason you're doing this now is because you're in first place now.
The first time I did it, I was in fourth, which
Okay.
pissed me off,
Okay,
for the record.
but now you
But
can brag.
now I can brag. In third is Jean, who is one of our loyal patrons. In second is Mark of Game Over Vancouver. And of course, in first is me, the smartest fantasy hockey GM in the network.
Here's a question. Were you in first before the current week started?
Yes.
Okay, because I'm going to say that you also have to give a bit of credit to me because I beat Mark. The last game just finished, so I think it's all locked in now. I just beat Mark 7-3, so you're welcome.
Okay.
You're welcome that I'm helping you get farther into first place.
That's
So
perfect.
it's all thanks to me, actually.
It actually is very helpful because I'm currently down.
Oh yeah, you're losing right now.
Ooh, I'm losing 6-5 this week. Uh-oh. Okay, so that's very helpful. Thank you.
Sorry.
Thank you, Maud. Thank you. All right, and with that, let's move on over to the third period. Let's talk goalies, and this is where I think the chat's going to come in quite a bit with some goalie opinions because we started the show off with a bunch of goalie opinions in chat. So, I want to figure out a way for this team to have a backup goalie that we as Sens fans can feel confident in without creating a major logjam at the position. So obviously Allmark playing out of his mind when he's healthy is great. But there are currently there are 43 games left after this road trip is done. 7 of those games are going to be back-to-backs. There are 3 back-to-back games in January alone. The Sens play both Saturday and Sunday.
Does that mean there's not too many more after January?
Yeah, so there's 3 back-to-backs in January and then another 4 for the remainder of the season.
Okay, well, I mean, I guess at that point that's February and March. So yeah, three in 1 month and then like 4 split over the last 2 months or 3 months, including like half of April. So yeah, I guess it's a huge clump of them right now too, because it's 3 back-to-back sets in a row here, and then yeah, into January even more. So as you were saying, it's going to be really important to have more than just Allmark in that.
Definitely. Like, and even if Allmark's ready to go as soon as this road trip is done, you got to think somebody else is going to have to play like at least 10 games. If you're looking at trying to do Allmark and somebody else for those 7 back-to-backs, you probably want to give Allmark a break in case there's like, an instance of 3 games in 5 days or something. So you got to imagine someone's going to be playing somewhere between 10 and 15 games for the remainder of the season following this road trip. And that's even if Allmark is ready to go as soon as they're back. And I'm not super confident in basically anybody that the Sens have at their disposal. I'll start with Marilainen just because he played tonight. I am still to this, like I wrote like my notes on this before the game for the record. I am super, super high on him being a backup of the future for Allmark. I think he can be a super, super steady backup. And the only reason I don't want to say like a 1B is because of how amazing Allmark is and has been for the last several years. Like I think calling Allmark and Marilainen a 1A, 1B, even if Marilainen turns into like, an everyday like 905 to 910 type of like backup goalie who plays 25 games or something, like I don't think that's the right way to put it. But I do have very high hopes for Marilainen. He's still so young at only 22. And I do think that, as early as next season, I think he's the right guy to be the backup. I would like to see him get a bit more volume in the AHL, just like try and get a bit more just experience. Like he's played phenomenally well. He had like that one season in the top Finnish league as I think it was like 19 or 20, and he put up crazy numbers there. He's looking solid in the A. But so because like the thing is, I do think Marilainen's the guy, and it sounds kind of silly after how great he was tonight. I just don't know if it's now. Then the other issues are Forsberg, right? So I did the math on this one. So far this season he has an 889
with 2 shutouts, which makes
crazy.
Which pisses me off because you would think 2 shutouts would raise your stats a lot. We've seen how Allmark's hot streaks and getting those shutouts has had his save percentage skyrocket. But meanwhile, Forsberg with 2 shutouts, still a terrible save percentage. So that's not what you want to see.
But basically, with Anton Forsberg, Since December 8th, 2022, he has an 890.
Goddamn. Did you say 2022?
December 8th, 2022.
Okay.
And I mean, that's just
Okay.
me rounding the number, but this season he has an 889.
Yikes. Ah.
Last season he had an 890. And from December 8th, 2022 onward for the rest of that season, he had an 891. So 891, 890, then an 889. It's an 890 since December of 2022.
Yeah.
He's just not good enough.
At this point, the season where he played 46 games and had a 917 is a long time ago. That's 3 years ago now, and yeah, like you said, the average since then has been tough because the season after that where he finished with a 902, I think that was the year where he had that brutal injury, I think.
Yeah.
So, but like you said, the 902 average, but in the like second half of the season there before he got injured, the numbers were already going down, right? So he's just been trending down, and yeah, even though he's a really likable guy, I don't think I mean, yeah, the contract situation was already set up for him to probably not be here after this year anyway. He would have had to play great to earn another contract with the Sens, and it just seems like that's not in the cards at this point.
Yeah, no, he's just been honestly, he's been terrible for 2 years now. And then you got Sogard, who is just not. I don't think it's still early. He's played 29 games, but I don't think he's an NHL goalie. He has a career 879, and his contract is one way next year.
See, that might be a bit of a fuck up from Pierre Dorion. I think he did that before he was canned. Like you said it's still early, but also like 30 games as an NHLer. If you become a full-time NHLer, that is early, but if you don't impress in those first 30 games, it doesn't really feel early to me at this point. And the thing is, he's been trending downward for the last couple of years, similar to Forsberg, because in the end of 22-23, which was actually, that's when Forsberg got that injury that I was just talking about. When Sogard first came up that year, like, I thought he was pretty good for the first little bit, but then I remember, I think, for another thing that I mentioned earlier in the show, I think it was around the time of the "We Want Playoffs" chant that we ended up with Sogard in net for these games, and immediately after that, we went on a Western road trip and started getting absolutely demolished, and that's when Sogard's numbers tanked, and he ended up with 19 games played at 889 save percentage. So I thought, like, earlier in that stretch of his call-up, he was pretty good, but the team just let him down, unfortunately. But since then, the numbers have just cratered even worse. Like, every single game that he's played in a call-up situation since then has just been, like, straight-up garbage. Like, not a single good result, pretty much. Which is tough because last year he was good in the AHL with a 916, but then even this year in 6 AHL games and 877, if he can't even keep up the good stats in the AHL anymore, then you wonder if you even want to bring him back for another year. But then he's signed to a one-way for next year, which makes it really tough. That might be something where the team just has to bite the bullet and pay him that one-way money in the minors, because at this rate, I would be shocked if management decides to go with him as the backup for next year.
I think you have to bury him. So like, as far as like filling out the roster, I don't think him on a one-way is a big deal. I think if you're looking at like, maybe they want to give Merrilainen a full year as a starter, you're like, holy crap, we're paying like 700 and some thousand to this guy to play 20 games in the AHL next season.
That's the thing too, because Merrilainen came into this season pretty much as the AHL backup, right? Like, Sogard was probably expected to start more games, but he got called up and then he got sent back down. He got injured and then called up again. So Merrilainen has played more games than him at this point, which wasn't really the plan. So yeah, and at this point, Merrilainen seemingly moving ahead of him because of that. Yeah, it's tough to consider a guy your AHL backup and be paying him one-way money, especially for a team that's tight against the cap. I believe, I think when you bury it, it's not like the full cap hit, but I think some of that would still count against the NHL cap hit, right?
I think his contract is low enough that it wouldn't.
Okay,
but I don't know for sure.
I think you might be right about that. Maybe
but either way, like,
will let us know.
Yeah, either way, like, Forsberg comes off the books at the end of the season. That's great. They desperately need, I think, a solid backup And maybe that is Maryland as early as next season. Maybe it's Maryland as early as right now. I don't know. There's something about a 22-year-old goalie that makes me nervous. And
Yeah.
like since he put up those numbers in Finland shortly after being drafted, I was like, okay, I am too high on this guy and I will remain that way. And I'm still very high on him. And maybe that's me being like they need to have something in return for DeMello, and maybe that's
Oh, it
because
was from that, eh?
yeah, it was that third
Okay.
round pick.
You were right
But
when you said earlier about the volume of starts, though, because like I said, Maryland wasn't expected to be the starter in Belleville going into the season. He'd
mhm,
more of the backup role. But now all of a sudden you have him playing NHL games, and he's been doing pretty good in these games so far. But it wasn't the plan. He doesn't have a ton of experience even in the AHL, so I think
mhm.
ideally you would want to have him as the starter for probably the rest of this season once Olmark and Forsberg are both back, and then for probably most of next season too. You just wanted to get him playing a lot of games to really see what you have, as opposed to just seeing him play occasionally like we are right now. But yeah,
Yeah.
if either of Olmark or Forsberg continue to get injured for the rest of the season, Merrilainen definitely has a step above Sogard for being the first call up. I would say like it'll be interesting because of the few days off before the next set of back-to-back games. You're gonna have to probably play two goalies again because of the back-to-back. It'll be interesting to see if either Olmark or Forsberg are back because if they're not, you probably start Merrilainen in the first game, and then good luck with Sogard again in the second game, or you pray that one of the other goalies is able to return and play that second game. I think.
Yeah, if Forsberg comes back, like I don't think you have the option of looking for a backup for this season, just based on like unless it's a goalie swap and you send something extra with
Yeah.
Forsberg. But I don't know how
He's
many.
he's on a 2.75 cap hit, right?
Yeah.
Which is brutal for a backup. Like that type of money is more like is getting into the territory of tandem goalie money. And
Hmm.
at the beginning of the season, we were doing a tandem until Forsberg cratered and Olmark took off. So, but if you're at the point of needing to move Forsberg elsewhere to get another goalie, that's not a cap hit that anyone's really going to be wanting to take.
Yeah, I think it's just tricky to fill that spot because no matter what, you have too much going on at the position, and like if Forsberg and Allmark are hurt for longer than is expected, and Maryline goes on a run and like shows that he's the guy, like and then I'm perfectly fine with him being the backup as early as next season.
Hmm.
Um, there's just too many contracts there right now for that to be the case if everyone's healthy right now. But yeah, all that to say is whenever anyone but Allmark is in net, I'm a little nervous and I'd rather not be. That even though like with those last 43 games if Allmark is healthy, like I think he could play 33 of those games and probably
Hmm.
just put the Sens in a great spot.
Yeah.
But it's a very nitpicky thing, but I've been thinking about it a lot.
It's important right now, the emphasis specifically because of all these back-to-backs. We saw Olmark play a back-to-back and do very well in both sides of it, but
That's right, yeah.
it also wasn't the plan because that's when Forsberg got injured. He was supposed to start the second game of that back-to-back. So even though Olmark can do it, they weren't planning for him to do it, and he probably wasn't like wanting to do it necessarily. Like probably wasn't like his first choice. It was just that he had to.
Hmm.
And then like he ended up with the back issue that he's out with right now. You with something like that can like come back, and something like that can linger. You probably don't want to overwork him, right? You don't want to be purposefully playing him on both ends of a back to back. It happened out of necessity, and he did really well. And it's like, okay, it's great that he can do that if needed, but you don't want to be planning to be doing that because that's how you end up with the overworked goalie. And again, with like the back injury specifically, I feel like that's something that if we do overwork him, then it might keep lingering. It might get re-aggravated.
Definitely. Completely with you there. Um, I think that's really all I have to say about the goalies. Do you have anything else you want to toss in? Any dream backup
Hmm.
goalie to be acquired for Forsberg in a second at the deadline?
Not really because I don't know what goalies would be available. I don't know what teams would be looking to move a goalie.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's tough. I'm really glad we won tonight. Really glad that Merrilainen had a great showing because I felt like last night if you had Olmark, or maybe even if you had Forsberg, or if you had Maryland, judging on how he played tonight, they at least get to OT. I wouldn't say that Ottawa like deserved the win against Winnipeg or anything, but I thought they played well
Hmm.
for most of the game, and there was just a couple of soft ones that really sucked, and it was just tough to see the team let down by goaltending because that's been mostly rare this season, and it was the story
Yeah.
last season. So after the great stretch of goaltending that we had from Omark, it was really frustrating to see that. But luckily, Maryland stepped up tonight and played awesome for the Sens. So hopefully he can do that again. If he is needed to before any of the other goalies come back from injury.
I think it's pretty likely that it will.
Yeah.
Um, we'll see. We'll see what the goalie situation is like with those injuries going forward. But Maryland is probably in for, I'd say, a couple more games unless they decide to play Sogard over him, which just does not make any sense.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's move on to overtime. But first, we got to talk about our sick merch. What better way to support something you love than by rocking it as clothing? Game Over's apparel line has dropped with 3 unique designs. Whether you feel the nostalgic pull of our retro skater design, want to make a statement with our established design, want to wear your love for goalies proudly with our live and die by the goalie design, or if you just need another coffee to get through the winter, we have you covered. Designed by Brady from Game Over Winnipeg, use a QR code on stream now and take a look through our apparel store and help us rebuild local sports media in Canada while repping your community. I say this every single time. I have both hoodies. I have the skater hoodie and the goalie hoodie, and they are sweet. All right, let's move on to overtime. Let's see what's going on in the chat. I got one thing I want to talk about specifically here from Hamza. Hamza says, Flyers lose 5-4 in regulation versus the Kings.
Yes, we love to see that. So that's huge for the playoff race. I don't have the standings refreshed yet, but the Flyers, if they won, they would have been 2 points behind the Sens again. Now it's a 4-point gap, and we have 1 game in hand on the Flyers, I think. Yes, now that I see it updated there. So that's huge. Absolutely huge.
That is so great. Columbus closer than expected, but also the East is if the Sens can't make it in here with the East being as bad as it is, I don't know when they ever make the playoffs.
Yeah, that's the thing, because if you look at all the teams that are chasing the Sens, it's a tough argument to say that any of them are better than them or should be better than them, except for the New York Rangers, who are down at the fucking bottom. The New York Rangers.
God.
Oh my god, they are only 1 point out of last in the East now because Buffalo has won 3 straight after losing 12 straight, and Detroit picked up a win tonight. So the Rangers are the one team that should be ahead of the Sens, but they're not. Other than them, every other team is like Pittsburgh, Columbus, Flyers, Montreal. No one expected them to be in the playoffs. They expected them to be, kind of in the hunt, but not like, oh, this is definitely a playoff team. If we miss the playoffs and fucking Pittsburgh takes our spot, I'm gonna be livid. Of all teams, like, oh my god, if any team passes the Sens, just please let it not be Pittsburgh or Montreal too. But at this point, I'm not really taking their playoff chances seriously. They're on a bit of a heater right now, but they're still 5 points back. So I'm not going to consider them too seriously right now. But God, if Pittsburgh passes the Sens instead of like Columbus or Philadelphia, holy shit, I'm gonna be mad just because of all the times that Pittsburgh has gotten the better of the Sens in the past, and we're at the point now where the Sens should be trending up and Pittsburgh should be trending down. Somehow they've clawed themselves back into the playoff race after a horrible start. That would piss me off. So hopefully we can stay ahead of them.
What I find incredible is, obviously there are 8 playoff spots per conference. There are only 7 teams in the East with a positive goal differential.
Oh, yeah, the Bruins. Okay. Minus 14 sitting up there in the 3rd spot. Oh my god. Okay, they have played 4 more games than the Lightning and 2 more games than the Sens. So if not the Sens catching up to the Bruins, you got to think that the Lightning overtake them with 4 games in hand and only 2 points back. Like Boston is inflated by that that number of games played there for sure.
Yeah, Tampa being in a wild card spot with a plus 37 goal differential, which I believe is tied for best in the conference. Yeah,
Oh,
tied
that's
with
crazy.
Washington for the best goal differential in the conference.
Yeah, what?
So weird. So weird.
Tampa must have a lot of blowout wins, and Boston a few blowout losses. I know Boston lost 6-2 to Columbus the other day before beating them the next day. So I guess beating them the next day it reversed that. It was 6-2 and then they won 5-4 or 4-0, sorry. That ends up being even. But they had like the 8-1 loss to Winnipeg a couple weeks ago, and I think the next game was 5-1 loss to Seattle. So it's some blowout losses will do that to you. Luckily we haven't seen that too many like blowout losses for the Sens this year. They've managed to keep like most of their games close this year, which is nice, and we got that +7 goal differential to show for it at this point.
Yeah, going forward, just because obviously the Sens are on the road here for the next 3 games still. And I believe they only have one home game and then they're back on the road again. Am I remembering that correctly? Let's see here.
You want to see how fast I can pull it up?
Let's see how fast you can pull that up.
Okay, you have to click twice for schedule. You have to click twice for schedule. You go to the Sens website, you click schedule, and then there's a drop down. You have to click schedule again. Now I'm mad.
So the next 3 games on the road: Dallas, St. Louis, Detroit. So there's gonna be one divisional game there.
You were right.
And then they go home against Boston, and they're on the road again against Pittsburgh. So, or not Boston, Buffalo. So Detroit, Buffalo. Weirdly enough, not the important games there, but the game against Pittsburgh is. If you told me at the beginning of the season that I wouldn't care about the result against Detroit and Buffalo, but Pittsburgh would be a big deal, I would have been shocked.
Yeah, I mean, depending on how the next 2 games go for the Sens, because Dallas and St. Louis are still tough opponents, it is possible that like Buffalo and Detroit win some games in the time frame that if we lose both of those games, that those games could end up mattering a little bit. Maybe they'll get close to us, but you are right that Pittsburgh game is looking hugely important, and I think someone pointed that out in the chat earlier today too. Yeah, Hamza pointed that out in the chat today earlier too. They said the game versus the Penguins on the 11th of January is going to be so important, which is crazy. First of all, I didn't think there was going to be any important games in January, going to be honest with you with that. But specifically against Pittsburgh, even just a month ago, it looked like Pittsburgh was irrelevant. They managed to turn it around though. So that's huge. And also then we played Dallas again, which is annoying as hell to have to play them twice in 2 weeks. But then after that, the Islanders is another team that's chasing. So there's 4 games there in the first couple weeks of January where it's teams that are behind us in the Eastern Conference playoff race. So hopefully hopefully the Sens can create some separation.
Yeah, a couple of big games in January. Obviously, that Pittsburgh game, the Islanders as well, and Boston 1 week after Pittsburgh. So the span of a week, they play Pittsburgh, the Islanders, and Boston. And then Boston again later that same week.
Yep.
My God. Okay, this spread here. I mean, the Rangers, they're going to turn around eventually. So in the span of 2 weeks, they play the Penguins, the Islanders, the Bruins, the Rangers, the Bruins again.
That's going to be some really fun hockey and some really fun games to cover on the show here, because for once we're actually getting big games in the second half of the season. I'm so happy to just be able to say that after like in our 3rd season of doing the show. What a nice feeling.
Yeah, and I also want to point this out too. I don't know what the source is on this, or it's from Tankathon. Everyday Sens posted on Twitter that Ottawa has the 7th easiest remaining schedule per Tankathon.
Right.
And a very good point here that their final 20 games or so probably the easiest in the league. Also worth noting that Detroit, the Rangers, the Islanders, and Buffalo have the 4 toughest schedules remaining.
Okay, so hopefully they're screwed. Hopefully they can't.
I need to take a look at all that, but like based on if that's what Tankathon's saying, I'll trust it. So thanks Everyday Sens for that sweet tidbit of info right there, and I think I don't want to be too positive, but like,
hey, we have reasons to be positive now. This is the best we've ever had it since 2016. So
this is the best December since, well, I think Hamza pointed out in the chat, this is the best December since 2007, 08.
Wow. Yeah. I guess the final record for December, is it 9 wins?
Yeah, 9-3-1, which is the best December
Mm,
on record since 07-08, where the team went 9-3-2. That's from
that's
Hamza.
crazy. Oh my God.
So the Sens are in a great spot. Both the fact that they are in a playoff spot, they have games in hand. The teams surrounding them are more or less floundering. The East sucks in general, like a bunch of mediocre teams with a few really strong contenders near the top. Again, if this isn't the year they make the playoffs, I don't know when they do it. This is the year they have to do it, not just because of the timing of it all, but just the context of what's around them.
If they miss at this point, I think you could still say, oh well, they made great steps forward. Assuming that they're like in it till the end and they don't have a ridiculous
If I
collapse.
if I have to end the season with, oh, they made great steps forward when they missed by like 3 points.
It'll suck, but at the moment, at the current moment, I'm saying I wouldn't be too mad about that because it would mean that it was a good season overall for once. For once in the last like almost decade, you know. It would suck, but our standards are low over here. Like the bar
Yeah,
is low for me, you know.
that's fair. That is fair. God, like the more I'm staring at the January schedule right now, and it's going to be crazy. Obviously, I thought that the games against Washington were going to be a bigger deal, but Washington is just comfortably sitting in second in the Metro
Yeah,
right now.
Washington is sitting pretty.
But God, out of I mean, obviously, like I think it's because like I mean, this is gonna be your standard schedule, like month for a team in the East. I think it's just because we've been watching so many games against Western teams in the month of starting out with a bunch of Western teams, being Dallas and St. Louis.
Yeah, that's true. It's really lopsided for the first half of the season here of playing a lot of Western teams, even on home ice. There's a lot of
Yeah,
teams, including like a couple of the California teams, still have to play the
yeah,
Sharks at home.
Anaheim, L.A.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and the Western Canadian teams too, other than Winnipeg, they all came here. So that means a lot of Eastern matchups for the second half of the season, and that means a lot of potential to either give up points to teams that are in and around you in the standings, or to take points away from them and really put yourself in a good position, which is good. That's huge.
yeah. 11 games in January against Eastern Conference teams. Um, a good chunk of them are teams that are in the hunt for a wild card spot as well. So it's going to be, every single game is make or break at this point of the season. Every month is make or break. This January is going to be so important for this
Hmm.
team. I mean, obviously every month going forward is, because the closer you get to the end of the season, the more important it is to be in a playoff spot. But this month is going to be crazy. Tons of games against the division, tons of games against those specific wild card hunting teams in the Metro. Um, God, that stretch of Pittsburgh and then Dallas for some reason, the Islanders, Caps, Bruins, Devils, Rangers, Bruins, Leafs. That's gonna be crazy. It's gonna be a very fun or depressing month. Um, Either way, it's gonna be very entertaining, and it's
Hmm.
gonna be, yeah, the first weekend of January. There's no games for the Sens, but then they play Saturday and Sunday each of the next 3 weekends to finish off the month. So
I'm hyped. I'm excited.
it's gonna be amazing.
And Hamza also said in the chat we're on pace to finish with 90 points. I just quickly looked that last season the last playoff spot was 91 points. I was wondering if it was like if I felt like 90 sounded kind of low, but it's about on pace with what it was last year with Washington and Detroit both having 91 and then Washington getting in on the tiebreaker. So we're
Right.
we're right around where what it was to get in last year, just one on pace for 1 point less than that. And since we're in the final wildcard spot at the moment, the Sens point pace is basically what the barometer is. Like
Mhm.
if they can just keep that pace, it would require another team to go on a heater to actually pass them. So pretty decent. Ty also saying that Money Puck's odds of making the playoffs for the Sens is 57.9, which is just above a coin flip, and I'd say that makes sense because there's a
Yeah.
bunch of teams chasing them, but they do have they're in a position where they control their own destiny with games in hand on certain teams. So I think that makes sense. Like I don't know how their model determines it, but just based off of pure vibes, I like that percentage. I think that makes sense.
Yeah. One thing also worth noting, the downside to playing on weekends a whole bunch when you're with the Ottawa Senators, they have 5 games starting before 7 p.m. this month.
Oh, it's time for the afternoon games, eh?
Here we go. Yeah, it's 4 o'clock against Pittsburgh,
4
5
o'clock on a
o'clock against Dallas.
Saturday. 4 o'clock on a Saturday is gross. I want that 7 p.m. spot on a Saturday.
Yeah, 3 p.m. on Saturday against Boston, 1
What's this?
p.m. on Sunday
What are
against
they-
the Devils.
Ugh,
Then they play 5 p.m. on Sunday against
disgusting.
Utah.
Yo, what's with the 2 straight weekends there where the first game of the back-to-back starts like later in the day, so like less than 24 hours, right? Like 3 p.m. one day, and then the next day 1 p.m. They don't get a full
Yeah,
24
and they're
hours.
traveling too.
Yeah, with travel, and then the next weekend 7 p.m. to 5 p.m. the next day. What the hell is up with that?
Yeah, 2 of those 3 back-to-backs in January, it's a home and an away. Like, there's
Yeah.
travel for 2 of those 3 back-to-backs. That's brutal.
That's tough. So hopefully Linus Ullmark will be healthy soon. As Anthony said in the chat, with a healthy Ullmark, Sens are in the playoffs 100%, and also saying the Sens are 6 points back from first in the Atlantic. That's a weird feeling too. Is that we're
That's
talking about
crazy.
we're talking about the East being a little bit weaker, but like it applies
To
it
boot?
applies to the top as well. Where
To boot,
Mhm.
with the game in hand.
Yeah, that's true. Because Boston, Florida, Toronto have all played more games than both the Sens
Yeah.
and the Lightning. So
Toronto and Florida both had 46 points in 37 games. So, yeah, the Sens are...
it's a weird feeling to not be that far back, to not be like 15 points back of the top of the division. Like they've had one hot streak so far this season. If they can get another one without like sinking too deep in between, you never know. Because like if you pretty much play 500 hockey from here for the rest of the season, you'll have a chance at the last wildcard spot. But they've shown that they are able to go on a run for the first time ever since 2016-17. They've actually been able to go on a run. Like if they throw in another 6-game win streak somewhere in there, you never know. Maybe they can move into the top 3.
Imagine a third in the Atlantic finish, and then they're probably playing one of Florida or Toronto.
Oh God, the Kachuk Brothers Bowl in the playoffs. If
That
they,
would-
they play
oh
Florida, I feel like
God.
I don't want to face the Panthers because you don't want to face the Stanley Cup champion defending team. But that would be peak if we had the Kachuk Brothers
entertainment
matchup.
For the entertainment, absolutely be amazing. And also, I don't want to play Toronto in the first round.
I do because we would beat them. I'm saying it now. I'm
yeah.
saying it now, and someone pull this clip. If we do face Toronto in the first round, we're gonna beat them. I'm saying it in December 30th. Specifically, only Toronto. If we play Florida, I'm not confident to say we beat them. Boston, even then, who knows? I feel like that's a coin flip. But just because Toronto,
Oh my God, could you imagine Ullmark playing Boston in his first year gone?
that's another good storyline. If we played any of them. Like, it's most likely that we would finish wild card, but there's still a possibility of playing Toronto or Florida if we finish in the wild card because they'd be winning the division. So potentially really fun storylines in any of those matchups.
Definitely. Yeah. God. Just playoffs in general. I'm not even gonna. I need to stop being so picky about it. Just playoffs, no matter what.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be so thrilled.
The beggars can't be choosers. We'll take any opponent.
Exactly. All right, I think that's probably a good place to wrap up. We went for a long time, which is good. There's tons to talk about. Great game tonight. Bit of a break, like you said, not playing again until the 2nd, Thursday, and another back-to-back Thursday and Friday.
Yeah, I'll be back on the stream for that Thursday game. Don't know who I'll have on with me yet, but I'll try to see what I can do for bringing someone on. Otherwise it might be a solo yap fest. We've tried to avoid that as much as possible this year, the solo shows, because those are tough. You did have to do one earlier in the year, eh?
I did, yeah. Unfortunately, had a guest lined up last minute, couldn't make it. So those are tough. I've been doing my best to avoid them. It's been easier now that we have a much bigger team doing these shows for Ottawa, so that's been great. But yeah, those solo shows are tough. I lean on the chat a little too much for those.
Oh yeah, I know all about that. So yeah, but yeah, I'll be back on the stream for Thursday for the Sens next game against Dallas. Excited for that.
That should be a fun one. Scary team though is the only issue. That's a very scary team.
They're surprisingly they're in the wild card spot. And with the before the win tonight, they were outside. They actually slipped a bit, which is funny because their record is significantly better than the Sens. Well, not significantly. Actually, I'm forgetting that the Sens record is actually good for once. They're only 2 wins better than the Sens, but their points percentage is nice. So they would be a little higher up on the East, I think. But yeah, still a tough team. It's gonna be interesting.
Yeah, hopefully the Sens can enjoy the fact that they have what is allegedly one of the easier schedules for the rest of the season, especially towards the very end there. As long as those bad teams don't completely turn it around, and then it becomes a nightmare. But thank you all for watching Game Over Ottawa, your source for the best analysis and rants and going off topic a whole lot following Ottawa Senators games, at least when I'm on the show. Yeah, we'll see if we can get some more Charlie and Maude episodes going for the rest of the season as well. We got to fit some more of these in.
Yeah, seems to be good luck so far with the 3-0.
Yeah, very, very good luck. Yeah, I think that's it. I think that's the show, folks. Thanks for tuning in. Just like Maude said, you can catch the next Maude appearance on Thursday night against the Dallas Stars, where she's going to bring the luck for a blowout win, would you say?
A blowout?
Call it now.
No. Oh yeah, I can't get that cocky. I can't get that cocky.
Just.
Do you want me to call? You want me to call win or loss?
Yeah, call it right now.
I'll say overtime loss. I'll be a little cheesy and be like, they're gonna play.
I'll take a point.
They're gonna play good and get to overtime, but I don't think they beat Dallas.
Okay, I'll take a point against Dallas. I'll take that. Absolutely. All right, we'll see you next time, folks. Have a great night. Let me hit the. I'm gonna hit the button one more time.
Hit the Sens button again. Oh my god. Let's blast it.
Oh, hold on. You got the OBS in the layers. Hold on.
Oh
there
yeah,
it is.
it's
Now
probably
on
buried
screen.
now.
If you're listening to it, you heard it a second time there. For all the viewers watching the YouTube videos who are in our live chat. And hey, by the way, if you're listening to this after the fact or watching after the fact, be sure to tune in live next time. It's a whole bunch of fun with the chat. And we'll see you live in the chat next time. Good night, everybody. Go Sens go. And we'll see you in 4 days. Got another break. Yikes. All right. Good night, everybody.